The desert highway stretched endlessly under the burning sun. A lone trucker, Logan, had just pulled over for a quick break until he noticed them. A group of masked men, creeping closer, their hands gripping weapons. They thought he was just another easy mark, just another trucker with nowhere to run. But they had no idea Logan had seen worse, and today, they had just made their biggest mistake. They thought he was easy prey, but they had no idea who they were messing with. What would you have done in Logan's place? Let us know in the comments. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more intense stories. Logan had been on the road long enough to know trouble when he saw it. The sun was setting low over the desert highway, casting long shadows across the cracked asphalt. The air was thick with heat, and the hum of his engine was the only sound breaking the eerie stillness of the evening. He was making his last stop before pushing through the night rundown gas station in the middle of nowhere. As he pulled his rig alongside the pumps, his eyes flicked to a group of men loitering near the convenience store. 4 of them, all dressed in dark jackets and jeans, standing too still, watching him too closely. Their bikes were parked haphazardly near the entrance, their chrome reflecting the last light of day. Logan sighed. He'd seen their type before, men who thrived on preying on the unsuspecting. They were looking for an easy target, but they had picked the wrong trucker. Stepping out of his rig, he adjusted his cap and rolled his shoulders. His boots crunched against the dry gravel as he moved toward the pump, his back straight, his pace unhurried. He could feel their eyes on him, the kind of stare that tested boundaries, waiting for a crack in the armor. The leader of the group, a lean man with a jagged scar running down his cheek, nudged one of his buddies before pushing off the wall. He took a lazy step forward, flashing a grin that didn't reach his eyes. "Nice truck," the man said, his voice carrying just enough friendliness to make it sound like a veiled threat. Logan didn't react. He just unscrewed the fuel cap and started filling up. The leader took another step closer. "Hey, old-timer, I'm talking to you." Logan turned his head just slightly, his expression unreadable. "Yeah? And?" The man chuckled, glancing back at his crew like this was some kind of joke. "Man's got some attitude. Ain't often we see a trucker rolling through here alone. Most guys know better." Logan looked at him then, his stare cold and measuring. "Maybe I don't scare easy." The leader's grin faltered for just a second before he covered it with a laugh. "Tough guy, huh? Well, maybe we can work something out. See, me and my boys, we like to keep the roads safe. Problem is, safety ain't cheap." Logan's jaw tightened, but he kept his voice calm. "That so?" "Yeah," the man nodded. "And for the right price, we can make sure nothing bad happens to your truck. Or you." Logan exhaled slowly, shaking his head as he turned his attention back to the fuel pump. "You boys really think shaking down truckers is a good idea?" The leader smirked, stepping even closer now, almost within arm's reach. "Oh, we don't think. We know." The other men chuckled, their hands resting casually near their belts near weapons. Logan noted the bulge under one of their jackets, the telltale weight of a pistol. Another had a switchblade, twirling it between his fingers, the blade catching the dimming light. They were trying to provoke him, trying to see if he would break. But Logan had been in worse situations than this. And he knew one thing for sure: men like them always pushed too far. And when they did, they never saw what was coming. Logan could feel the shift in the air. The way the gang closed in slightly, the way their laughter had an edge to it. This wasn't just a casual shakedown anymore. They had decided he was an easy target. A lone trucker, far from help, outnumbered. Scarface, the leader, took another step closer, his boots grinding against the gravel. "See, old man, we're giving you a choice. Pay up, or maybe you don't finish this trip." Logan's fingers twitched near his belt, but he didn't reach for anything. Not yet. He knew how these guys worked. They wanted fear. They wanted him to panic, to make a mistake. He wasn't going to give them that. "You're making a mistake," Logan said evenly, his voice steady. Scarface grinned. "You hear that, boys? He thinks we're making a mistake." The others chuckled, but there was tension under their amusement. They were expecting Logan to give in, to start bargaining, to show weakness. Instead, he locked eyes with the leader and didn't blink. Scarface's grin faltered just slightly, and Logan saw it, that split-second hesitation, the moment where the gang leader realized this wasn't going how he expected. But instead of backing off, he doubled down. "You don't get it," Scarface said, his voice dropping lower. "We ain't asking." His hand shot forward, snatching Logan's keys right from the ignition. The gang laughed louder now, their confidence surging. Logan exhaled through his nose, slowly, controlled. His patience was running thin. Scarface dangled the keys in front of him. "So what's it gonna be, huh? You gonna be smart about this? Or do we have to teach you a lesson?" The biggest guy in the group, a hulking man with a shaved head and a vest full of biker patches, cracked his knuckles. Another one tapped his knife against his thigh, waiting. They were trying to back him into a corner. Logan looked at the keys, then at Scarface. Then, with deliberate slowness, he took one step forward. The laughter stopped. Scarface's fingers clenched around the keys as Logan's presence seemed to grow. The easy patience in his posture, shifting into something else. Something dangerous. "You boys just made the worst mistake of your lives," Logan said, his voice quiet. Scarface smirked, but Logan saw the flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. The storm was coming, and they had no idea what was about to hit them. Scarface's grin didn't last. Logan stepped forward again, closing the gap, his movements slow, deliberate. "Enough talk," Scarface spat. "On your knees." The gang shifted, their hands hovering near weapons, waiting for Logan to comply. But he didn't. Instead, he rolled his shoulders, loosening up like a man getting ready for something. "Something violent," Scarface frowned. "Didn't you hear me, old man?" Logan's lips curled into a smirk. "Yeah, I heard you." And then he moved. Faster than any of them expected, Logan grabbed Scarface's wrist, twisting hard. The gang leader yelped as the truck keys slipped from his grip. Before anyone could react, Logan drove his knee into Scarface's stomach, knocking the wind out of him. The gang erupted into motion. The big guy lunged forward, throwing a wild punch. Logan sidestepped, grabbed his arm, and used the thug's momentum to send him crashing into the side of the truck. Another came at him with a knife. Logan caught his wrist mid-swing, twisted it with practiced efficiency, and forced the blade to the ground. Scarface stumbled back, coughing, rage flashing in his eyes. "What the hell?" Logan turned, rolling his neck. "Didn't anyone tell you?" His voice was calm, deadly. "I don't scare easy." The gang hesitated, reassessing. Logan had been quiet before, patient, controlled. But now they saw it. The war in his eyes. This wasn't a trucker they had picked a fight with. This was a man who had been through hell and come out the other side. And he was just getting started. Scarface staggered back, clutching his ribs where Logan had just driven a brutal punch. The rest of the gang hesitated, their bravado slipping. They had come here expecting an easy target, a quiet trucker who would hand over his keys without a fight. Instead, they had walked straight into a war zone. One of them, a wiry man with a busted lip, reached for his gun. Click. The unmistakable sound of a shotgun being pumped froze him in place. Logan stood in front of his rig, leveling the sawed-off shotgun at the group. His stance was solid, unwavering. The cold desert wind howled around them, kicking up dust, but his voice cut through it like a blade. "Go ahead," he said, calm as ever. "See how that works out for you." Wiry hesitated, his fingers twitching near the holster. But Logan didn't flinch, didn't even blink. Scarface groaned, forcing himself up. "You son of a—" Before he could finish, Logan stepped forward and grabbed him by the front of his jacket, yanking him close. Scarface's nose was inches from Logan's, and for the first time, true fear flickered in his eyes. "You want to act tough?" Logan growled, his grip tightening. "You want to be a big man, shaking down truckers? Then let me show you what happens when you mess with the wrong one." With a single fluid motion, Logan spun Scarface around and shoved him to his knees in front of his own gang. The others stiffened. Scarface sputtered, his pride bleeding out faster than his busted lip. "You think you're something special?" Logan knelt beside him, lowering his voice. "You're not the first punk who thought he could push me around, but you might be the dumbest." He grabbed Scarface's hand and forced it onto the dirt, pressing it down like he was about to teach a schoolboy a lesson. Then he took Scarface's own knife, the very same one he had tried to use on Logan, and slammed it into the ground, just inches from his trembling fingers. A warning. A message. The gang stood frozen, watching their leader, their so-called tough guy, humiliated in front of them. Scarface didn't move. He couldn't. He was shaking. Logan slowly stood, towering over him. "Now," he said, turning to the rest of the gang, "I want all of you to think real hard about what happens next." One of them, the biggest guy in the group, finally cracked. "Screw this, man! I didn't sign up for this!" He backed away, his hands raised, and then turned and ran. Another followed, then another. Within seconds, the gang was scattering like cockroaches, tripping over themselves to escape the scene. Scarface, still on his knees, watched his so-called brothers abandon him. The realization settled in he had lost everything. His gang, his power, his reputation. Logan leaned in one last time. "Guess you ain't as scary as you thought." Scarface clenched his jaw, his hands balling into fists. But he didn't dare make a move. Logan turned and walked back to his truck. He never even looked back. By the time he climbed into his rig and started the engine, Scarface was still on his knees, staring at the dirt, alone. Logan smirked, shifting gears. He had places to be. And that was the last time anyone ever tried to mess with him on the road. As Logan guided his rig back onto the open road, the hum of the engine was the only sound he needed. The desert stretched endlessly before him, golden light spilling over the horizon, painting the sky in warm hues. It was the kind of scene that would have made a man feel small unless that man was Logan. He had been through too much, seen too much, to feel small. The night had been a test, like so many others before it. The gang thought they had power, thought they could intimidate a lone trucker just because they had numbers. But power wasn't in how many people stood behind you. It wasn't in weapons or threats. Power was in standing your ground. Logan glanced in his side mirror. The dust had settled. The road behind him was empty, just as it should be. No more gang, no more threats, just miles of asphalt ahead, just the way he liked it. He reached over, adjusting the radio. Static. Then a song crackled through, something old, something familiar. He let it play. Some men had to learn lessons the hard way. Scarface? His lesson would last a lifetime. Losing a fight was one thing, being left in the dirt by your own men, knowing you weren't the leader you pretended to be. That was something else entirely. The look in his eyes as his gang abandoned him, that wasn't just fear. That was the realization that he had built his reputation on sand. And now, it had all crumbled. Logan wasn't proud of what he'd done. He didn't enjoy violence, didn't go looking for trouble. But he'd learned long ago some fights find you, whether you want them or not. And when they do, you have two choices: stand your ground, or let the world walk all over you. Logan had made his choice a long time ago. The highway stretched endlessly ahead, promising another long night, another few hundred miles. He'd be back on schedule by morning. Life moved forward. It always did. But before he lost himself in the road, in the rhythm of the drive, he thought about something else. How many people out there had been pushed around by men like Scarface? How many had let fear win? The truth was, you didn't have to be a fighter to stand your ground. You didn't need to throw punches or aim a shotgun to make people respect you. You just needed to make sure that when someone tried to push you down, you stood up stronger than before. He turned up the radio, rolling down the window. The cool night air hit his face, and for the first time since the fight, he let himself smirk. "Guess some folks gotta learn the hard way," he muttered. Then, without another thought, he shifted gears, pressed the gas, and disappeared into the horizon. Now, let me ask you, have you ever had to stand your ground when someone tried to push you around? Have you ever seen someone else refuse to back down? Drop your story in the comments. And if you want more real stories from the road, don't forget to like and subscribe.